Yeah.
Mind, body, soul, check. What's happening? It's Joe Dash. Welcome to the Joe Dash Effect podcast. And we are here again. And I've got a lovely queen that's coming in today. We're just going to talk about raw foods, and she's going to discuss her health journey. And we're just going to really dive into that and start to understand where some of this stuff can be beneficial, some of the myths, some of the science behind it. And it's going to be a great conversation. So thank you for joining. I'd like to welcome Kay Raw is what she goes by. But what is your actual full name?
Raw K.
Raw K. Raw K. I even said it the wrong way around. Raw K.
Yeah.
The name is very intriguing. Where did you? Is K short for? Is it Key? How you pronounce the actual?
Kay. My name is Koshira.
Koshira. Where are you from?
I was born here. But my heritage. My father was Bajan and my mother was white.
Oh, okay. What was that like growing up?
Interesting.
To say the least.
Yeah, especially back in the 60s, it was very interesting.
I was gonna say, like, these are the times where it was like, whoa, who's that? Because there's not a lot of mixed race children, I can assume, in the 60s and stuff like that, like there is now. So I just want to get into you. I mean, you eat raw, I guess. Is that your standard diet?
100%.
So take us through like where you've been, because there's a lot of raw debates in the society. So I thought it'd be a great conversation for someone who actually lives it and kind of find out what was the motivation behind being raw and what it's done for you. You know what I mean? Because if it's done great stuff for you, it could do great stuff for other people. So walk us through when you started raw. Let me just ask the question from there. When did you start?
10 years ago.
All right.
10 years ago, yeah.
And what's happening with you 10 years ago?
10 years ago, I was in a wheelchair. I had degenerative spondylitis plus rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, chiroarthropathy, gout, and myriad others. I had 18 separate conditions.
How did you get to that point, though?
I started off as an insulin-dependent diabetic when I was a child of about 7.
Okay.
And then went on to peripheral neuropathy. And what actually happened, I mean, I'm actually jumping ahead now.
Yeah.
But what happened was I started with the diabetes. The peripheral neuropathy came as a result of that. So they gave me medication.
Oh, okay.
So the medication for the peripheral neuropathy, which I started at about 15, caused kidney problems.
Okay.
So they gave me medication for the kidney problems, which went on and compromised my immunity. So started with the rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
After the rheumatoid, then I went on to something called gastroparesis, which meant that I couldn't tolerate or eat any solid food. So I was taking something called Fortisips, probably 8 to 10 a day of those, and just drinking black coffee. That was my standard diet. And then as time went on, the more medication they gave me, the more conditions I developed.
Okay, so this is just from the medication that they were giving you was causing a plethora of problems from a side effect point of view.
Yeah, I believe so. It's, together with my lack of nutrition as well.
Right.
I think that was a major thing.
So what was your diet back then when this was all developing, especially your teenage years or something? What was your diet like?
My teenage years, it was very bad. Obviously, I was a diabetic. I wasn't supposed to eat sugar and carbohydrates and so on. So, of course, I only wanted to eat sugar and carbohydrates.
The one thing you can't have, right?
Yeah. So they kept a bed for me as a regular thing at the hospital. I was there that frequently. And I actually got to 18 and met a girl who I'd been in the children's hospital with. And her kidneys had failed. She'd gone blind. Her back was crumbling. She looked like she was 64 years old. And I thought, that's not going to be me.
Right.
So I think the damage had already been done by then. By then I had the peripheral neuropathy and the kidney problems. And the medication just made it worse. I knew nothing about nutrition at the time. So to cut a long story short, the conditions went on and on. With the more medication I had, the more conditions I developed, until I developed degenerative spondylitis and lost 4 discs in my back. They just crumbled, just collapsed.
Okay.
So I couldn't.
What put you in the wheelchair?
Sorry?
Is that what put you in the wheelchair?
Yes.
Okay, got you.
That together with the osteoarthritis, which drastically affected my hips.
Okay.
But yeah, because my back was all bent up, I couldn't sit up or anything like that.
For sure.
So yeah, so I lived like that for quite a few years. And then in about 2011, I started to get unwell.
Okay.
I started to have severe sickness and diarrhea.
Okay.
But I was only on liquid food, so the diarrhea was more or less water.
Yeah.
So I was taken in and out of hospital twice. They give me anti-sickness, anti-diarrhea, but wouldn't actually bother to find out what was causing the problem in the first place.
Yeah, they're not going to do all that. They're not going to get to the cause. They're going to treat symptoms and send you on your way as fast as they possibly can.
Absolutely. And that's what they did with me. And for the third time that I went in, I was actually taken in with no blood pressure. My kidneys had shut down. My liver was struggling. And I was in a pretty bad state. So they kept me in hospital for almost 3 months. And whilst I was there, I had every test imaginable. I believed it was some sort of ketoacidosis. They said not. But whilst I was there, I developed full body shaking and debilitating fits that would throw me to the ground.
Oh, wow.
I was also having these fits and shaking episodes whilst I was sleeping, and the nurses and stuff reported that. So they decided that what they were going to do is do brain scans and find out what was causing these fits. The brain scans didn't show anything, and so they decided I was putting it on.
Okay, okay. They didn't understand it.
No, I didn't understand it at all. I didn't understand it. I had no control. I was fully lucid, so I knew it wasn't epilepsy because I knew exactly what was going on.
But you
I just
couldn't
couldn't control my limbs. No.
Of course.
So I phoned my diabetes consultant, who I've known for more than 20 years, and I said, look, you know me. I'm not prone to exaggeration or panic attacks. This is happening to me, and I'm really frightened. And he went away, and the day that I was being discharged with even more medication and no solution or resolution, he came and said, I found out what's going wrong. One of the medication I'd been taking for peripheral neuropathy, which is gabapentin, I was having an attack. It was the gabapentin that was causing the seizures.
Okay.
So he said to me I'd have to wean myself off those over a course of 6 to 8 weeks. And of course, I never took another one.
I'm like, wean? I'm having fits. You're talking about
hello?
wean. Like, you know what I mean? I just told you I can't control a fit, and you're telling me wean. Not even like a few days, like 6 to 8 weeks. So you want me to have a fit for 6 to 8 weeks? Like, no, it doesn't make sense.
I just stopped taking them there and then. I still have the fits from time to time, very occasionally. They manifest now as severe bodily shaking.
Okay. The severity of it is kind of reduced itself from what it was, let's say 10, 15 years ago. So,
yeah, absolutely, it's reduced. But it's still coming out. They said it's going to take a good few years for that to actually come out of my system.
Okay. Is this do you reckon this is one of the key problems with allopathic medicine? Is that it never speaks to the cause of something or look at the body from a holistic point. It just kind of like patches you up and then
absolutely.
And then,
and I mean, because absolutely, and because I had 18 separate conditions, I was constantly asking my consultants, please get together. I'm one person. I'm not 18 separate people.
Yeah.
And I wanted them to consult to make sure the medication they were giving me was right.
Yeah, it's making sense.
Yeah, but I could never get that. It was too much to get 18 different consultants together in one place.
I feel like they've got a structure, and I feel like there's no room for them to come out of that structure. They follow everything because there's legalities, there's policies, there's this liabilities. So there's no room for flexibility when you meet a patient that's a slight anomaly, because what happens now is like if they step outside of what they're trained to do, then their liability is all on them. Absolutely. But how does that work for the wider audience that of people who have these unique conditions? They'll just fall through the cracks. And then, you know what I mean? And most don't make it as far as you've been fortunate to make it. You know what I mean? So then at that point, it's like, okay, cool. What were you starting to think of doing at home? Did you ever think to yourself, I need to come off these medications? Or were you just still early stages of learning nutrition?
No. When I came out of the hospital, I went home to die.
Oh, okay. So you had already, the doctor said there's nothing we can do. So you kind of accepted your fate and just like went home.
I went home to die. At the time, my skin was grey, my hair was falling out. My joints were swollen. I couldn't stand, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't eat. So I was literally sitting waiting to die. And a friend of mine came to visit me who hadn't been able to come to the hospital. And as he walked in, he went, my God, you look like you're going to die. I said, yeah, I won't be here for Christmas.
Body's
I'm
just
not the kind of
deteriorating.
doctor.
Everything's
Yeah.
deteriorating. Yeah, it's true. If the
And
body's ill, it will just deteriorate at a very fast rate, depending on how serious it is. Yeah, for sure.
That's right.
For sure.
So he suggested that I look at Dr. Sebi. And I
Oh,
thought, you know,
right.
to be honest, I really don't want to look to another doctor. I'm sick
Yeah,
to death
you're
of
just you've
doctors.
tapped out.
Yeah. And
Mm,
he said, no, trust me, have a look. So it
mm,
took a couple of weeks, but I did.
mm.
And the first lecture that I watched, he was talking about having a group of people, a group of animals together in a zoo. And when he said you would not feed the polar bear the same food you'd feed the gorilla, it just made perfect sense. It's like a light bulb went on in my head, and I'm thinking, oh my God, why did I not know this before? And then, of course, he went on to explain about acid and alkaline, which I knew related to litmus paper at school. I didn't know it had anything to do with my body.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know, so I was hooked from then. And for the next probably 2 weeks, I watched nothing but everything Dr. Sebi had written.
Right.
I watched something called the Raw Food documentary. And as I watched that, all the medication they mentioned I was on,
Yeah.
and all the conditions as a result, I had. So it's
Okay.
kind of looking at that made me think, hold on, I wonder if it's the medication that's causing this.
Right.
Because Dr. Sebi had already said it's my diet, because my diet was very acidic,
Okay.
alkaline at all.
Right. I mean, what do you can I ask? What do you understand from Dr. Sebi's? Because this is a very popular conversation I've been having with a lot of other people, especially other nutritionists. What is your understanding of alkaline and acid as far as diet is concerned? What's your understanding of it?
Well, we need to have balance.
Mm.
A lot of people that I meet want to aim for specifically an alkaline diet, which is
Right.
very, very good. But our
Right.
body also needs a certain amount of acid.
Right.
And if you become too alkaline, then you can actually become very ill as well.
Yeah, true.
So too alkaline is as damaging as too acid is
Yeah.
what I understand.
No, okay. No. Interesting. Now, I just wanted to know, I'm always just curious as what people are taking from it, because I feel like Dr. Sebi had a lot of powerful gems because, and it's just my hypothesis, but I feel like because he doesn't come from the standard education system that we are used to, his way of articulating it would not really, we won't really gravitate immediately, because we understand that, hey, the body requires balance. And if you say alkaline is good and acid is bad, there's a chunk missing from that, because we can't demonize acid, because a lot of your parts of your body are made up of acid.
Absolutely.
So
Stomach acid for one.
you know what I mean? Exactly. So so for me, the whole body, you know, me and Leo Marshall had a great conversation about it, and he was like, yo, your muscles are made up of acid, so how can we alkalize the body? How would that make sense, and how do we put that in proper context? So I've always just been interested in Dr. Sebi's work. I find him, he's a master at what he talks about, but I think, you know, he's had time, but I don't think he left us enough, you know, the scientific base to sit on, to really have the conversation in a proper way on why, you know, I mean, a lot of it was just statements like, you know, this causes mucus, but how, why, is there a way we can check how? And then when we go and study the whole mucus thing, is like, no, not every food causes mucus. That's only a very specific group. So I always ask, like, what do people think about in that sense of Dr. Sebi's work? Because he kind of opened the floodgates to indigenous healing in ways we had never seen before.
Yeah.
You know?
He did, absolutely. But like yourself, the way he explained certain things, I needed clarification.
Yeah. I have a million questions, and God bless the dead, but I was like, man, I had a million questions I would love to ask, just for clarity of something I just thought was a bit ambiguous with a few things, you know what I mean? Because he spoke about like garlic being no good. He was the first one to say,
carrots being artificial.
and carrots being artificial, because carrots being hybrid, that I'd known, but the whole garlic was bad thing. I was like, how? Like, garlic has a lot of biochemical compositions, but he said it weakened the cellular membrane. But I couldn't find no study on this, and this is what I mean by ambiguous. I couldn't find no studies to support what he's saying, but he seems to use it in the best way to heal people. So what he's doing is working. So I was just trying to, you know, close the gap. Like, okay, cool. What am I missing that I'm not understanding that what he's saying? You know what I mean? So go on.
Sorry, what I found helps is when I found gaps, and as you say, there were several. I did look for some evidence to support a lot of the things that he said, and I struggled. But then I also looked at people like Layla Africa. And I got a lot of answers from Layla, and I actually spoke with him several times. But what I found is that I looked at several different people, and the best thing I would explain to people is take what you need from each.
True.
And that's what I did.
That's a
I took the truths that I needed from each of them and were able to combine them to make a package.
No, it makes sense because they didn't get along.
Yeah, I didn't plan to make the package. The package sort of developed
organically from the
yeah. And so after a great depth of thought, because don't forget, I hadn't eaten any solid food or anything for so long, it's been 20 years at this stage. So I started with green juices and water. And the first sip of green juice that I had was like heaven. My mouth started to water profusely because I hadn't had anything for 20 years. So I'm kind of like trying to drink this juice and I'm stop salivating. And it's just my body welcoming the nutrition in.
For sure.
But more than that, what happened is 3 days being on the green juice and the water, my body started to move because the one thing they had diagnosed at the hospital is that I was constipated.
Okay.
I couldn't understand how, because I'd had sickness and diarrhea for up to 3 months and I ate no solid food. So how could I be constipated? So 3 days on the, sorry?
What did they say? Did they answer that? Did you ever get the answer to that question?
No, that was a thought I had to myself.
I thought you asked the doctor. Okay.
No, I did ask them and they just said, oh, well, you must have ate something. Very, very disbelieving.
7 years of medical studying and you must have ate something is what comes out. So, okay, great.
You're constipated, so you must have eaten something.
So you must have eaten something. Thank you.
So anyway, 3 days on the juice, my body started to move.
All right.
I wonder if you can guess what was coming out.
Mucus?
Capsules from the 74 tablets a day.
Oh.
I was blocked from here right down to the other end with pure capsules. It took 3 weeks for them to eliminate.
That's weird. I thought those things dissolve.
Not always. And it's not they're not always made out of substances that are able to dissolve.
How would they do it? How does that even make medical sense?
It doesn't.
But
give they're like a kind of plastic and my body couldn't digest them.
I'm like, your body's not built for plastic. I literally thought it was something that was biodegradable. Maybe they've changed it. I don't know. I haven't been on medication in God knows forever. But man, I'm like, it doesn't make sense to give somebody a medication to solve their ailment wrapped in something that can also harm them. It makes no sense at all.
But I think as well, it was perhaps just the pure quantity that I was having. My body couldn't keep up.
The cocktail of medication that you had to take for all these different kind of aspects.
74 a day.
That is a lot.
Yeah, 5 times a day, I'd sit down with a saucer full of tablets and a pint of water. Well, it wasn't even water; it was black coffee. I used to take the black coffee.
Okay. Wow. When you first started juicing, what was the selection of that you were using?
I was using spinach. I was using cucumber, celery, Granny Smith's apples, ginger, lemon or lime, and sarg. I used a lot of mustard greens as well. But I also used a lot of herbs. I used to interchange with herbs. So instead of using sarg or spinach, I might use coriander and parsley.
Okay.
But they were always green. I didn't venture into fruit juices until probably 2 years in.
Okay, but it was always just veggie greens.
Yeah.
So what's your take on the juices?
Well, my understanding is that when we're born with sufficient nutrition to keep us to live a long, healthy life.
Right.
And when we eat cooked and certain foods that compromise our immunity, it actually costs us in nutrition. Because say, for example, if I was to eat a chicken dinner, my body would go, oh, wow, what is this? What do I do with it? So in order to digest it, my body would release calcium, selenium, chromium, iron, zinc, coat this substance. My body would go, oh, it's a food. Let's throw some digestive enzymes at it.
Okay.
But the most it could do, because it has no fiber, is break it down to mucus. Of course, as we know, that's the perfect breeding ground for disease.
Yes,
But more than that, I started having major problems when I got to just before 50. So if you think that for 50 years, you eat 3 meals a day and 3 times a day, you're giving your nutrients away, by the time you get to 50, 60 years of age, you don't have sufficient to keep you well.
To be honest, making it that distance on poor diet is even one thing to look at as well. So if you make it there, you definitely wouldn't be in good shape.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? You definitely wouldn't be in good shape. It'll be very difficult at that time, because this is all what, you know, if you lack those micronutrients and macronutrients, then it's a massive, massive, massive problem. And when you started eating raw, what was kind of like the first kind of changes that you started to realize, like the immediate ones for you in your journey?
I used to wake up every day and vomit.
Oh, okay. Why was
I had
that?
really, really bad acid reflux.
Okay.
And with gastroparesis as well, I used to wake up every morning and the first thing I would do is vomit. I started taking the green. Oh, I also started taking lemon and water. Sliced lemons in water before I had my juices. Every day I'd have a pint of hot water with lemon. And I found that the acid reflux went. It moved really quickly.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
then as time went on, I started just to feel stronger. I didn't feel sick all the time.
Okay.
It's really strange, but on a kind of a spiritual level, I could feel the nutrients restocking my supplies.
Okay. Right.
And I could visualize that in my head. I could also see those nutrients fixing me and repairing where needed to be repaired. And I think raw food is a brilliant vehicle to get you where you need to be. But if you don't have the mental discipline to go with that, it's going to be very difficult.
So I'm going to say that's going to take a lot of mental discipline, definitely. So where does raw food sit in accordance with a balanced diet? What's your take on that?
Well, I only eat raw, and I'm getting better and better and better, because the more nutrition I put into my body, the better it can regenerate. As you know, we regenerate daily, and we regenerate an entire skeleton within 7 years. So I've done an entire regeneration already. And with the second one, I'm feeling even better and stronger. I noticed my hair stopped falling out. My nails got stronger. I actually wanted to stand up. I wanted to go outside my house. I enjoyed the juicing. I found that very therapeutic in itself. And for somebody who hadn't eaten solid food for 20 years, just to eat a piece of lettuce or bite an apple was just amazing.
Wow, and something that we take for granted on a daily basis. Yeah. That's incredible.
And I fell in love with food again, basically. And I didn't need meat or milk or eggs or fish or anything like that, because it'd been so long since I'd eaten it anyway.
Right. But what about some of the stuff that you can't get from plant-based diets? Were you supplementing it at all?
Well, I'm not quite sure how it works, but I had pernicious anemia. That was one of my conditions, which is B12 deficiencies, as you know. Right. And I was taking a B12 shot every 3 months. Okay. When I started doing this, I continued having the B12 shot. And then probably a year or two into it, I thought, oh, I haven't had my B12. Let me get in touch with the doctors. And they said, oh, you can't have it. It's been a year since you've had it. I said, don't be ridiculous. If I don't have it, I feel awful. She said, it's been a year since you've had it. So they retested it.
Yeah.
And when they tested it before, it was something like about 2,000. This time it's like 20,000. So she said, you no longer need the injections. I've never had another one since. And yet I've always been told that raw vegans specifically would be deficient in B12.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because that's B12 is not really a veggie-based source thing, even though you can get it from nutritional yeast or fortified cereals and different things.
I did use nutritional yeast.
Okay.
That is one thing that I did use.
B12 coming from?
However, when you get an apple and round the core, B12 actually grows around the core of an apple because it's dirt-based.
Yeah.
So if you're one of these people that washes your apples in Milton and all of those kind of things, you're going to get rid of the B12. But I wash mine
on the outside of the apple, or you say in the core?
Just on the core.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
some people sort of really sterilize their fruit and stuff before they eat it. You actually kill the B12 there. And it's like with spinach, Cavaliero Nero, things like that. The
What about iron?
dirt.
Where are you getting iron from then?
Well, I don't know. The rule I picked up was to eat something of every color every day. And that's what I do. I eat
Okay,
fruit
interesting.
predominant. I intermittent fast every day. So I don't eat before
That's definitely a very big helping
Yeah.
factor too. So
So I don't
that's
eat
really
before
interesting.
2 every day.
That's
2 o'clock is
interesting.
my first meal. And that will be juicy fruits.
That's all
So
right.
oranges, grapefruits, melons, something like grapes.
That's all
And then I'll
right.
have an evening meal round about 5, 6-ish. And then I'll just graze on fruit thereafter if I need to.
Okay, but literally going raw, at least because going raw gives you all the enzymes and the protein, the life of the actual meal. I guess sometimes I think about, cultivation, agriculture, where's it sourced from in this country? Do we have the best version of something? But I guess in those kind of extenuating conditions, you only have a small window of options because the solid foods that is available is going to be counterproductive to healing because it's always processed and it's got.
Well, I only use organic.
Yeah,
and I only eat
exactly.
seasonal as well.
Oh, okay, exactly. Okay, so you're synchron. Okay, okay, right. So that makes sense. So if you're, because obviously we eat fruits all year round, no matter what the season is, we just kind of, and I could always tell because the fruit tastes disgusting. I'm like, okay, fair enough. Because when it's in season, it seems to be a lot more sweeter than when it's not. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So when you were doing raw as well, what was anything difficult about it, or you just like, well, I haven't got a choice. I'm sick, so the only other way is to go the other way, basically.
That was my thinking, but it was
Right.
difficult at first because I thought I like salad, but not that much to eat it every single day, all day. And I found the internet was very useful. And then I developed different ways to make raw meals.
Right.
My weakness was chocolate. I always had a sweet tooth. So I learned how to make raw, vegan, gluten-free, organic chocolates.
Oh,
And
nice.
that's one of the things I sell now.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
Yeah, I do the
Nice.
chocolates, I do cheesecakes, I do apple crumbles, you name it. It's all raw,
Nice. All
organic,
raw organics.
gluten-free, and vegan.
That's really, really
Yeah.
cool. That's
So
really
once
cool.
I had the sweet bit covered,
What's the
then I
website?
just
Let people hear the website. What's the web? Where can they buy it from?
well, it's actually been finished at the moment,
Okay, no
but
problem.
it's going to be rawvegandelights.com, but
It's gonna be Raw Vegan
it's in
Delights.
process.
All right,
Yeah.
no problem. Just hope you can get in touch because I always try and encourage people that, especially people that kind of live with a sweet tooth, to find alternatives. I'm like, there's so many great alternatives.
I
I
do
love.
diabetic
Yeah.
chocolate as well.
Oh, you do diabetic chocolates as well.
Yeah.
So
Because
talk to
I'm a
me.
diabetic, and as I said to you, type 2
Yeah.
diabetes is my specialty.
Are you so? How long have you been type 2 diabetic?
No, I'm type 1 diabetic for
Oh, type
56
1. Sorry.
years.
Okay. Okay. Were you ever type 2 or just type 1?
No, type 1.
Oh,
Type
okay.
1 from
Okay.
7 years old.
From 7 years old.
But my specialty is helping people reverse type 2 because as a diabetic, it's looking at diabetes that I really went into initially and in autoimmune diseases and so on and so forth.
Okay.
And I've been able to help at least a dozen people reverse their type 2 diabetes.
That's put them on a raw program or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Raw program and exercise as well as the mental bit comes into it as well. So self-talk is really important. And that's what I start my consultations with, because if you're not in the right frame of mind, regardless how much raw food you eat, it's not going to make the slightest bit of difference.
Yeah, you're gonna have to have the willpower to actually go forth and actually try and attempt this thing and actually make it work. Because I always found it odd when if people had these kind of conditions. In my mind, I used to think to myself, if I've got a condition like that, it will be a no-brainer. I'm like, I have to do this. I want to live. Like, I just have to do it. But people still struggle.
They do.
And it's just life. It's just real like that. Some things can inspire others to move in a certain way. Sometimes it really slows people's, dims people's motivation, so to speak. And they struggle with it for years before they realize, okay, this is something that I need to really take serious from. I mean, in reversing type 2 diabetes, exercise is definitely a key thing. Is there specific, do you advise fruits? Because obviously fruit juices has lots of sugar in it. What's your take on that?
Well, my understanding about type 2 diabetes is it's not actually about sugar, it's about fat. When if you can envisage the stomach wall, when you eat your sugar, it goes into your body. Sorry, this background is awful, but
the background is tripping me out right now.
Really? Oh no! Oh, I don't know.
I was like, whatever makes sister comfortable. But I'm just there like, oh my god,
I can't remember how I got it on, so I can't even take it off.
When you lean forward, it's fine. Just remember to lean forward when you're talking, because when you lean
forward, better?
That's way better. Yeah, when you lean forward, that's actually
okay. So yeah, my understanding is that when you eat food, it goes into your stomach. Yeah. Then it goes through your stomach wall and meets the insulin receptors on the other side of the stomach wall. Those insulin receptors then transform the sugar and the carbohydrates into energy, and any excess energy is stored as glycogen in the muscles. Now, what happens is, as you put on weight and you eat the standard Western diet, shall we say, with all the fat, and the fat starts to accumulate, you actually build up too much fat on the stomach wall for the two components to actually communicate. You're now type 2 diabetic. Your body is still producing all the insulin that you need, and sometimes more than enough than you need. But because the two senses can't talk through the fat, you're type 2 diabetic. Okay. So once we start eliminating the fat in the diet, and the fat in the body starts to reduce naturally, the two components start talking again. The diabetes is eliminated. It really is as simple as that. Okay. The fruit sugar, now that even though there is sugar in fruit, the sugar in fruit is actually helpful when it comes to building new cells. So unlike Tate and Lyle, fruit sugar is actually built to help us regenerate.
All right. So I've had issues with diabetics. I've had issues with sugar, but I guess everyone's constitution might be slightly different, but it's something I've always been mindful of that some people have had issues and with diabetics and type 2 diabetes, especially when they've had like a banana or something like that, like 2-3 bananas per day or something like that. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, okay, I know holistically nature's always providing assistance to the body. So I know once it's coming from nature, we can't go wrong. But at the same time, there are exceptions to the rule where sometimes people's own body and constitution doesn't allow them to be able to interact with those sort of things. But for the most part, you just put them and say, hey, this is a raw diet. You got to exercise. You got to stay hydrated. And how long does it normally take to reverse that? To reverse like a type 2 diabetes? Just on average, obviously everybody's different, but just on average.
Yeah, type 2, I would say within 3 months.
Wow.
Within 3 months.
Like
if you're
days,
disciplined.
No, about 90 days. So, okay.
If you're disciplined, you can do it within that time.
Wow.
You know, and it really is about taking out all the carbohydrates and all it's processed foods more than carbohydrates, because there are carbohydrates in fruit and there are carbohydrates in certain vegetables. It's about taking out the processed foods, because the processed foods have got the hidden sugars, the hidden carbs, the hidden fats, the hidden salts, all of which are detrimental to the body.
No, it is. It definitely is. It definitely is. I guess, is it just raw from here on out, or is it ever going to be a time where you have a normal meal?
What is a normal meal? Raw is normal.
What the westernized normal meal, I guess, because it's true. That is a very good point. So like the westernized normal, I mean, you have, I don't know, potato, fish.
Well, one of the things I discovered is with my rheumatoid arthritis, especially, it was quite widespread. And what I found is that nightshades actually affect rheumatoid arthritis. So tomatoes, sweet peppers, white potatoes, aubergine, those things actually exacerbate the rheumatism.
Okay.
So I don't have any of those things in my diet ever. I never eat tomatoes, peppers. If I have done by mistake, then the arthritis is up for 5 to 6 days, really badly inflamed.
Wow. Okay. Right.
And I had my hands I don't know if you can see, used to be curled up like this.
Wow.
And this is all I've got left of the arthritis.
Wow. Okay.
My hands are,
Oh, okay. And that's just for having it for years.
Yeah, well, yeah, I've had rheumatoid arthritis since I was about 25.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah.
Because for people, I always told them, listen, if you don't find time for health, you're gonna have to find time for disease. And depending on your own genetic expressions, it can be very horrible or it can be something that's manageable.
Absolutely.
But one thing we definitely have learned from people like Dr. Lila Africa, Dr. Sabi, was that, you know, raw foods can have a massive impact on health. Something that I always try to induce, especially when I do my programs, I try to make the diet half raw at least. So through a smoothie, through salad, I try and mask it a bit so it's not overpowering at the gate, because I know that raw, you know, life from the food, you know, you have to eat life if you're alive. You're gonna have to eat life to get life. You can't eat death and get life from death, isn't it? So it's very important that people do dibble and dabble into raw foods and stuff like that. So is there ever a time where you cook, when they say raw, a veg is raw, but even if you cook it, it's still the veg, isn't it? It's not like it becomes something else.
No, it doesn't. But the nutrients within the vegetables die once they get to the temperature of 114 degrees. So if I cook or boil food, I'm going to kill the nutrients. There's no point eating it because it's dead food and it will cost nutrition. The most I will do is perhaps steam a piece of butternut squash or sweet potato occasionally and make a potato salad with a tahini dressing. At least when you steam, the food never goes above 100 degrees and you retain as much nutrients as you possibly can.
Okay, when you steam. Okay, so it's 108 degrees is when you change the chemical structure of the actual vegetables. So as long as you keep it below there.
Yeah, and 114 is totally dead.
Okay, 140, there's no point. And what kind of ways? Is this when you boil something and when you fry it, I guess it takes...
frying, roasting, severe, boiling indefinitely, all of these things kill the nutrients. And then you're literally putting dead food into your body.
Which is pointless completely, especially if you use it like a microwave. What's your thoughts on microwave? Can people still get any benefits?
I haven't had a microwave in my house for about 9 years.
Nah,
I refused to have one in my house.
We had to get rid of ours. We had to get rid of it. We knew that your using micro nuclear explosions on your food is completely radioactive after that. It's not even it's not even,
and it destroys your metabolism.
Yeah, and it affects you when you eat it. So now it's not only is dead, it's now poisonous for you. So it doesn't work out in any shape or form at all. And so when you want to, obviously you eat raw, so it's not like a microwave is an essential part of anything. When you steam it, what do you use to steam? Just a pot, or do you have a specific kind of cooking apparatus that
I have used a steamer before, but once my steamer broke down, I just bought a little basket and I now just steam it in a sort of an inch of water.
Okay. All right, cool. You actually get a steamer in there, and is it one of them things where you can set the temperature?
No, what I do is I put it in a pot. I bring the pot to boil, and then I turn the pot off and put the lid on, and just cook it in the steam of the cooling water.
Okay, all right. I get what you're saying. That's very interesting. I think people that want to go raw should be educated about how to do it properly, because I always believe there's always a science to everything, and there's a way to do it. Because some people if you just go raw and don't understand certain vegetables are not necessarily the thing you need, or certain things aren't, then you can go completely left.
And it's important to get the right balance of nutrients, because if you eat the same thing every day, you're not doing your body any good.
Right. So so from a raw point, I'm trying to think, okay, cool. When you study nutrition, they tell you need your carbohydrates, you need your fats, but whole grain carbohydrates. You need your healthy fats, you need your protein, you need your veggie. If I'm raw, how do I get all the balanced macro and micronutrients inside my body if using veg and fruit? How do I do that?
Okay, I could make you a really interesting meatballs and spaghetti, which would have everything in it, which is raw. I make macaroni cheese, which is raw.
How do you make macaroni and cheese raw? I'll go ahead this one. How do you do this?
So for your macaroni, you obviously use spiralized courgettes.
Okay.
Or you can use spiralized courgettes with spiralized carrots and sweet potatoes, which is really good. Okay. And then for the mac and cheese, it's about sweet corn, which is not the wonderful vegetable, but sometimes, because what it is there are transitional meals.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say.
Yeah, because I don't consult with somebody and say, okay, tomorrow you're going raw. It's not
sustainable.
Yeah, it's not real. So what they do is they have a period of transition, however long they need. So within the recipes and stuff that because I do consultations as well. So within the recipes and stuff that I give them transitional meals.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
Yeah. So if they have a weakness for, I don't know, shepherd's pie, for example, I show them how they can make a raw vegan shepherd's pie. We can just brown the top in the grill.
Okay.
A lot of times I make raw soups, and I said to people, put them in a pot and just warm them gently to take the chill off them.
Oh,
So this
okay.
makes them believe that they're still eating a cooked soup, but it's 100% raw. But because it's taken the chill off it, they don't notice.
Right.
I
Because we
make
love
tuna.
warm food. We love warm food. Warm food is
Yeah.
addictive. We love warm food. Warm food is a massive part of our palate of how we enjoy food. You know, it took me, was it to 2019, 2020, actually, early before we went into lockdown, I started enjoying cold starters, but I realized I love warm food. And I was like, I've had some good cold starters, but if I had to there's something about warm food that is very appealing to the human, nature. But at the same time, it's about just not killing the nutritional value in it with the way we cook it. So as long as you keep it in a certain space, you can still get all the raw natural essence from the food. Is that basically the game?
That's right. Yeah. Okay. And I mean, I don't like cold food. Cold food is not good for us as people because our metabolisms run at 96.5 degrees. So why would you put a freezing cold drink in there? Every time you do that, your metabolism goes, and with that freeze, it messes up your rhythm.
All right. So you're saying a warm beverage would be better?
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, I drink fresh herbal teas that I make. Can you see that? I know this background's dreadful. I'm really going to try and sort it out tomorrow. I do apologize. But I take my food out at least an hour and a half before I'm eating it. So if there's food in the fridge, I take it out an hour and a half before I eat it so it comes to room temperature. And I find that room temperature is more acceptable.
Okay, to eat at room temperature because you said your body metabolizes at what? 90 what?
96.5, 97.5 degrees.
97.5 degrees. So anytime we have something cold, like an ice cream or something like that, you're saying that your body really doesn't like those kind of things. It prefers something warm or at least room temperature type things. That's interesting. So what's your take on your raw vegan? So what's your take on frozen fruits then? That'd be an interesting one because there's been many debates about that, like with wild berries, which is the frozen fruit I use. Apparently that's when the antioxidants are much more potent when you freeze berries. But how does that work with a body that needs something at room temperature? How would that work?
Well, I still make smoothies. I still make, what do you call it now? Sorbets. So I do use frozen fruits, but I use frozen organic fruits. So I agree with you. There are more antioxidants and nutrients in frozen berries and things like that than there would be in fresh ones because we don't know how long the fresh ones have been hanging around. But the frozen ones tend to be, I think, in my understanding, frozen more or less immediately. So they retain all those nutrition. I use those if I make sorbets and things, but a sorbet I will still leave to come to room temperature.
Okay.
So it's still frozen, but it's not frozen. So it's an icicle that's going to give me brain freeze.
No, it's true. It makes sense. Every time we learn more about the body, just as a people and stuff like that, I start to understand, like, you know what, we are we cause our own downfall because we're not really properly handling the way the body's set up is with rules, that universal, what do you call it? It's like universal truth. You know what I mean? Yeah. A universal truth that allows us to understand, like, hey, this is who we are. This is what we need. And this is how your body wants to deal with things. It does not want to deal with things in a specific way. It has its own universal laws that it abides by. So that's very, very important for us to all remember. Like, and everyone's body's different too. So it's not like it's, one thing works for every single person in the exact same way.
That's right.
You have to be familiar with your body to understand what makes it do certain things and why is it in a certain space. So that makes sense.
However,
right,
if you think about it, when man started on this planet, if you believe in God, we were provided everything we needed in the Garden of Eden. And up until 1932, when they made processing plants, man had survived quite well on raw foods until we didn't have no cooker, didn't have no microwave, no fridges even. We ate what was readily available from the trees and the plants. And that sustained us and helped humanity develop up until the stage where we invented fire and all sorts of different things and whatever.
I'm going to say we had fire for a long time, for like over 100,000 years.
But we didn't need to cook the plants.
Yeah, we didn't.
And people started eating meat when they sort of went to the cooler areas of the planet where greenery didn't grow. So they had to sustain themselves.
So it made sense to actually reach for something like meat and use fire to cook it, because obviously...
That's right, because there is no alternative at the time. But prior to that, everybody would have been a vegan and a raw vegan.
So, and that's quite interesting. So you're like, even in ancient Egypt, there's a big debate about whether or not the Egyptians ate meat or not. At different stages, depending on how far back you go, at different stages of the dynasties, we did eat fish, not necessarily meat, but we definitely ate more fish at some point, and that definitely wouldn't have been raw. But just our genetic makeup and the way we are. What would you say to people that say, you know, we have the canine teeth to tear meat? What would be your take on that?
We have the canine teeth to eat things that might be a bit tough. Our bodies and our digestive systems are not designed to process meat. That's why it takes up to 72 hours to digest it. In that meantime, what happens is our body's using 80% of its energy to do that digestion.
Okay. I remember reading somewhere one time that it drops the acid level to digest something that's unnatural, such as meat. I don't know if that's something you've ever heard before, or what's your kind of opinion on that?
My understanding is that your body releases nutrients from itself to help to digest the meat, which is an acidic product. And because it has no fibers, it breaks down into pus, nothing more. So if you're not eating anything green or with fiber, you've got no way of sweeping it out. So it will just sit there and lay there. And if it takes 72 hours to digest and you eat meat every day, your body is never cleansed from that meat.
So is that why they put like a veg with their roasts to try and help push it?
I believe so. I believe so. For
some
real.
Innate
put a little apple in the mouth or something.
Exactly. You do like a raw pig and put an apple in the mouth. And like, somebody in the room knows what's going on and knows what's up.
Absolutely.
What is it like when? Because I want people to understand, like, there's some basic things we can be doing on a day-to-day basis to help our own situation out. As someone that's been on the other side of sickness, what happens to your life? Like, what happens to that in terms of the, you know, when people, someone becomes paralyzed, they begin to understand something like walking is just like invaluable. Or it was like you mentioned earlier about when you had that solid, how much it was just a party, you know, for your taste buds, because you're like, I'm eating. What's life like? Because I want people who have not experienced that to understand why what we're saying is such a massive thing and why we should just apply it, even from the fundamental side of things on a daily basis. What is life like when you have these things? What happens to you?
Number one, I can walk, first and foremost. Number two, I actually look forward. I never saw a future before. Everything was going downhill. And as I said, I got to the stage where I was just literally waiting for death. Yeah,
you said you went home to die.
Yeah, I went home to die. And that's what I started writing a book called Waiting to Die.
Oh, wow. Did you finish it?
No, it's about halfway through. And I started to live again, innit?
She's like, no need for this. Return of the Mac, come back again. But funny enough,
I think I will finish it.
I was gonna say, like, funny enough, it's only when we're faced with death do we truly understand life. So to be quite fair, I can only imagine a book like that would be so powerful for someone who just completely just kind of made peace with the other side and then found life to come back to. Because that feeling or that moment really, really starts to reintroduce you to yourself. You know what I mean? So you can understand how to value yourself and why you matter and why being on this planet is important. You know what I mean? So like if you've got rheumatism in your hand, how does it affect your ability to can you grab stuff? Is it constant pain? Is it what is
it? I used to draw, I used to paint, I used to love to knit, I used to sew and make all my own clothes. All of that went.
I'm still here. I'm just gonna plug my battery in. Keep talking.
That's cool. I couldn't even hold a pen. So that was really difficult. I had to give up university initially because I couldn't write. I've been able to go back and complete my degrees and everything, but yeah, not being able to write, not being able to get up and do what I want, not to be physically able, not to have the choices to do what I want, because my illness dictates where I am, what I do. Same with the medication and stuff. I always had to be in a place where I could take the medication on time, religiously, and stuff like that. So it was very debilitating. I wanted to get up and go shopping. I couldn't even stand. Wow. You know, it's ages since I was able to go out and buy a pair of shoes.
Wow. That is.
But I truly got to the stage. Many times I asked myself, why? Why have I been given a second chance? Because right now things are happening in my life and I just feel like I'm holding on for dear life and just letting them continue. Right. I believe I'm here for a reason. Right. I don't know what. I don't know if it was to spread a message, but I've been given a second chance for some reason. And that's why I try to do my best. I spread the word. I try to help as many people. I try to share my story to say, look, I'm nobody special. And if I can do it, you can certainly do it.
Definitely do it. Not for sure. Because, you know, I spend a lot of time explaining to people how much they matter. And it'd be surprising that a lot of people don't see themselves like that. You Absolutely. Know what I mean? And I'll sit there and think, I'm like, hey, like to make you, do you know how much atoms and chemical composition had to come together for you to be here, like by the billions and trillions, and the number is ridiculous. So you're not here by any accident. Everything's by design, whether we understand it or not.
Absolutely.
And understanding health is understanding life. You know what I mean? Because you're either eating, and I really love that slogan from Dr. Sabi about you're either eating to live or eating to die. And it's true. It's like, what are people doing? Are you eating to live or are you eating to die? And how much of it do you understand? Because that little bit of information, you know what I mean? For anyone that's watching this, they will understand, oh, okay, if I want to do raw, these are some basic things I just need to just keep my eye on and pay attention to. Because the same thing when I tell people that want to become vegan, I'm like, hey, you're going to be deficient to some stuff. Find alternatives that will deliver it because nature has everything.
That's right.
You have to find alternatives because it's not going to go down well. You know what I mean? Because I've met so many sick vegans. A lot of my clients are sick vegans. I'm like, how? And then later on in life.
Do you know what I find with that? Sorry to cut you. What I find with that is a lot of people that become vegan, the problem that they have is that they go out and they buy processed vegan food.
Right. Let's talk about it because that's the point I'm telling people. I'm like, listen, it's just transitional. It's not for you to stay there.
That's right.
The whole time and just buy. I call it because I'll tell my students, I said that's called a designer vegan because they're the ones that make people think vegan is expensive. Yes, if you're a designer vegan, but if you're eating actual veg and fruits and your water, no, it's not expensive. It's actually cheaper than buying all the
absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because remember, we used to be able to go to the farmer's market or go somewhere and get like a bowl for £1 of fruit, and you're like, if I spend £10, I've got a lot of bags of fruit and veg. 5 bowls of veg, 5 rows of fruit. You know what I mean? And people used to think it's expensive. I'm like, no, but if you're always in the gluten-free section, it's going to get real pricey. So a pasta that was £1 in the gluten-free section is £3.50.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a massive leap of a jump. But
well, gluten does have a major effect on our bodies. So even if you're not celiac, it is better to be gluten-free if you can.
Yeah, because it's not just for celiac people. Actually, it's true.
That's right. So that has been my experience. If you must eat, because I like to have raw oats, overnight oats and soaked oats and things like that. So I buy organic and gluten-free. Yeah, so I'm knowing that the gluten-free have been processed a little bit more than I would probably like. But it's kind of like, well, what do? Do you take the gluten and take the bit of pain, or do you go for a bit of processing it? You know, so it's about finding the balance that works for you.
Nah, it is. That is true. It's true indeed. Gluten's always been the topic of conversation. What do you think about soya? What's your thoughts on soya?
No, 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 no.
They push this, like when I was studying nutrition, they push this, they push the soya thing heavy. And I knew, I'm like, no, 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 no. Why not soya for you specifically? Why not?
Several reasons really. Most of the soy that's in the world at the moment is genetically modified.
Right.
They actually use soy to make plastic.
Yeah, so Ford Motors use it to make their seat
as well. So in order to make it as cheap as possible, it's genetically modified to produce and yield as much as possible. But also it has very little nutrition.
Even though they say the benefits, if you type into Google and said benefits of soy, they have a list for you.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I know it disrupts hormones. I definitely know for a fact it does something to our hormones.
Bit. Yeah, it does. So it does.
I was like, I don't want nothing that's disrupting hormones, because hormones really control everything. How you feel, how you look. Like hormones are the messengers that control everything. So if you the last thing you want to do is disrupt your hormones. You know what I mean? Because you will have a horrible time.
Yes.
If your hormones decide to go haywire, you know what I mean?
The whole endocrine system just collapses, doesn't it?
Oh, like literally, it's like people that are depressed, for example, going through depression, like their serotonin, all that stuff is super low and off. So until they come out of that state, they start to really kind of balance out, because like we mentioned earlier, it's about balance. Yeah. So with soy, I never recommend it to people at all.
No. And incidentally, I find that raw foods help with mental health immensely.
No, definitely. A lot of food we take disrupts our mental health too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely,
food influences our thought. I talk about this greatly in my book. I'm like, food influences thought. You know what I mean? Because to everyone else, it was kind of like, oh, how? But for me, it was mind blowing. From a science point of view, I was like, what? I'm going to eat.
Well, my understanding of that is that there are neurotoxins in a lot of processed foods.
Yeah.
And it's these neurotoxins that imprint on the neuroprocesses in our brain that give us the difficulties.
Yeah, definitely. Prions is one of them. Prions degenerate the brain. You've got other things, dioxins as well. There's a few other things that really mess up the system. So, but we're addicted.
We are, and we're addicted because of the neurotoxins.
Yeah, but we are addicts.
Yeah, but it can take with it if you've got the discipline. If you can go without for 2 months, your taste buds will adapt and the neurotoxin control will lessen.
Yeah, become a lot more easier. A lot of things people say on my intermittent program is like, Joe, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't eat much. I just eat what I need. When I'm hungry, I'm like, yeah. I said, because now we've stopped all the gunk from coming in, we can now listen to our bodies when our bodies are actually hungry versus when they're just bored. But I realized a lot of, there's an area of nutrition called nutritional psychiatry that I've really gravitated towards, because it's instead of just telling someone, hey, try a raw, program, I get to, break down the mental psyche and look at the mechanisms between a person and their food.
Yeah, absolutely.
And deal with that relationship. Because I'm like, if I can deal with the relationship and ease it, then they'll do the rest. Like the innate feeling, what feels right, what feels good for your body. Because as soon as you eat it and you start falling asleep, you shouldn't be eating that. You're not supposed to fall asleep after food.
Yeah.
You're supposed to have energy. That's the whole point of food, is to give you energy. So, but with all the other gunk, it's hard to kind of hear and feel your body, tell you things, because it's a constant, collaboration with your mind, body, and spirit. Right. So learning all those things was very, very key. Did you ever like dairy? What was your thing with that? Was it? Thank God I remembered it. I was about to forget. Dairy. What is your stance on dairy, and how did you ever use it, and did you not use it? What was your relationship with dairy like?
I had been allergic for eggs for many, many years, and I had been lactose intolerant for many, many years. But I did enjoy cheese and yogurt and things like that. So I did use them in the past. Now I make my own vegan cheese and my own vegan yogurts at home, raw, with no lactobacilli. So there's nothing artificial in them, apart from a bit of nutritional yeast.
That is incredible.
Dairy is not good. Dairy is not good on a multitude of levels, simply because of the antibiotics and all the additions and things that they use in the animals. In addition, if you see the processing of meat and farm animal and milking animals, the pus and stuff that gets into the milk. And I mean, the US, what do they call it? The Fraud and Deception Agency, the FDA. They
the fraud. These are the people that are responsible for deciding which foods hit the markets in the US.
That's the one.
You know what I mean?
And they actually say it's okay to have a particular percentage of pus in a particular amount of milk. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, for sure. If you can, if you can sell me GMO, you could. That's not even a far reach. You know what I mean? If you're going to give the human beings genetically modified food, then I can't see your conscience going further off from telling people it's okay to have a certain amount of pus in there. But are you ever going to do cooking classes for raw veganism?
I do them already.
Oh, okay. When do you host them?
I tend to do 6-week courses. So we do an hour of talking and reasoning why, and then we do another hour of cook along with me.
Nice.
So you get the recipes the week before, and we do the meal together.
That is incredible. Do you have like set times?
Yeah, it tends to be between 7:30 and 9, but we're trying to get between 7 and 9.
Oh, okay,
so it's
okay.
A 2-hour session.
7 and 9.
I'm just preparing the next one.
It's like on Sundays, Saturdays, Wednesdays. When is it?
Well, it had been on Wednesday evenings because that seemed to be the best evening for people. But I'm having a look at putting another lot on now because we actually finished the last lot just before Christmas, where we made raw Christmas puddings and a raw Christmas tree, which was fantastic.
Wow, that sounds delicious. Where can people find the stuff? Where can they get in touch if they want to learn how to cook raw vegan desserts? Because I'm sure that's what they're going to be more concerned with at the beginning. It's like, how do I have to get my sugar in the right way?
Absolutely. The best thing I can do is probably give you my phone number right now and my email address.
Oh, okay.
Until the website is up and running.
Are you on social media? No.
On Instagram. I'm on Instagram.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram.
That's good. What's your title? What's your handle on Instagram? What's your account?
It's raw_vegan_delights. DELITES.
Oh, okay. raw_vegan_delights.
Yes.
All right. So people, you've heard that. If you want to get in touch and learn how to make this delicious raw vegan treats or just food in general, because I need to start tapping into that because I want to learn how to make more vegan treats because I think it's awesome. Do you have like recipes already written out?
Yeah, I do have a small recipe book, and I'm writing a bigger, more comprehensive one at the moment. Nice. I'm also doing a book at the moment on how to reverse type 2 diabetes.
That's incredible. That's incredible. We need more of this information now. So yeah, I'm excited about the books you've got in store there. I think you can definitely have a massive impact with just using your story as a testimony, just what you understand. You've explained everything so simple. It's you know what I mean? And that's great for the average person just to understand that, hey, I can get some gems and just really build upon that in my own understanding of health. Right. K-Raw, I appreciate you today. Thank you for spending the time, the energy, and it is much appreciated for my listeners to learn and understand just the journey of being raw, different little things. And, you know, even the temperature thing, I think that was a good nugget for people to understand as well. Because I've been trying to explain to people like, look, if you add heat to something, you can change its chemical composition. In fact, you'll kill it at certain places. Like if you put it into a microwave, you're just going to nuke the food and it don't make no sense. So thank you for sharing the time with us, ladies and gentlemen. It's been the Joe Dash Effect. We've had another great conversation with the lovely K-Raw. So you can follow her on Instagram. When that website is up, I will be putting it on the YouTube account so you can click on it and go straight to her website and check out what she's doing with it. Because, you know, to each one teach one, we all need this information in the community, and we're just doing our part, so to speak, so we can have a longer, fuller life, because you definitely don't want to be stuck with none of these things. And hopefully through Kay's story, you could understand like, no, that's not a place for anybody. You know what I mean? So let's do the best we can with our health and survive the times, as they say. So peace, love, and light, everyone. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Is love, is love, is love.